It's great to have you on the podcast today. How you doing?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, awesome. It's great to have you on. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I just thought I'd start off by kind of asking about how you kind of got into what you do, because you're like dating and relationship coach, and the kind of the website that you have and what we was talking about previously is quite in depth.
Yeah. So, a little bit of background. So, I do something called behavioral profiling. I'll go into that in a little bit of depth in a moment, but it helps people to identify someone who's actually capable of a healthy relationship, and also helps you to see if they're compatible with you as well. So the way I got into it, I mean, originally I was an accountant, so this is completely different to what my roots were. But I went through some pretty toxic, narcissistic relationships where, yeah, it was just awful. I
Mm,
think I was like stalked for 5 years and all sorts, and I went through from like bad relationship to bad relationship to bad relationship. And it kind of made this whole like quest to find, what is it that actually makes a healthy relationship? How can you find a healthy relationship? Because I think that's something that no one ever tells you how to do. You see your parents and have a great relationship, and you assume that it's something that's very easy, very natural. But I think a lot of people don't know how, especially now in nowadays of online dating, how to find a nice, healthy, loving relationship. And I found that a lot of the advice out there is very much like just focus on self love and confidence and things like that. And I think, yeah, that's great, but there's still something missing. For example, if you've ever dated someone like a narcissist, they're almost like energy vampires. You can have great self-love, great confidence, but it's almost like if you've got a wolf and a sheep, for example, you're not going to change the way that the wolf acts from the sheep having self-love and self-confidence. It doesn't work that way. So I think it was last year I partnered up in business with someone called Chase Hughes. He's a world leader in behavioral profiling. So he's got something like $13 million of government backed research that he's created to be able to profile someone within 6 minutes or less. You can also detect if someone's being deceitful or truthful with you, which is obviously really important when it comes to dating. And this is actually skills that have been used in the US military. So military operatives have used this information. So it's that accurate. It's that, yeah, it's just such great info to be able to bring into the relationship and dating world. So you're not going to get anything as accurate as that, basically. So that's what we do.
wow. No, that's awesome, and it's interesting how you said you kind of made that switch. You said accounting? Was it accounting? You said that
Yeah.
that switch from that to like what you're doing now, and I think like from my personal experience as well, and I think with how the kind of world is moving now, a lot of people are doing online dating, especially I think with COVID, especially
Yes.
it's a bit difficult to meet people and to meet up. But I think like it's pretty great how you said how you've got this technology, at the side where you can use that with this dating platform. And I think it's so key, as a person to be with the right person. And I think, especially from my personal experience, I mean, everyone's got a different experience of online dating, but I think it is a bit of a minefield. It's a bit of a gamble sometimes. You have to get to know people, and online, you don't really sometimes know who that person is. But like you said, if you've got that platform where you can kind of break down that compatibility, where two people can meet and be alike or have the same kind of common interests is pretty great, because a lot of the other websites, it doesn't really have that. It's like everyone's different, but interests and things like this, and to me, I don't think it's very accurate. A lot of the other ones.
No, exactly. And I think one thing that's really scary that I find with online dating sites, we actually did a webinar last night on this, and it's something like 51% of people who are dating online are actually already in a relationship. 12% are actually married. And I think it's things like this which makes online dating harder. You know, you hear about the terms like ghosting, breadcrumbing, and all these different things. And it's usually because people are trying to hide away what's really going on in their life. They're not actually looking for a relationship. They might be just looking for a one night stand. They might be just be looking for a little bit of gratification, getting matches and likes and things like that. So one thing that we actually do as well, we've got an amazing person on the team who's, I think he's got about 18 years of experience of doing something called deduction. And what that is being able to look at photos and being able to pick out loads of different information from those photos. So we tested him out to see what he could actually take away from like these online dating profiles. And it was freaking amazing. We managed to find this one that we wanted him to have a look at. We gave him 3 photos. And literally within 3 minutes, he'd managed to tell us that this guy was a murderer, a rapist, pedophile. It was just unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And we knew that this was true because we actually researched online dating profiles of murderers. So we actually managed to show him and prove to him that he was completely right because we had the news article to go with it. But this is the stuff that you can literally take away from online dating profiles, just a few photos, and you're able to make a informed decision of whether to meet that person or not. And I think one thing that was absolutely fascinating about this was that prior to that crime that guy had committed, he had a completely clean, if I can get my words out, clean criminal record. He didn't even have a parking ticket to his name. So if someone had met him when he had that dating profile up, he wouldn't have committed any crime by then. And that could have put that person in danger. So the fact that we can spot all this information from a dating profile straight away just saves people a lot of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty, it's pretty crazy, isn't it? Like, I mean, that use of technology is pretty amazing. But plus, like, with like online, like I've heard a lot of horror stories where people have met people and certain things have happened. And I think like you've just got to kind of use your common sense in some way. But I think in some scenarios when people are meeting somebody, you know, it's exciting when you meet somebody, you're texting, you're dating, you know, whatever. And sometimes, you know, what I've learned is that, you know, your head isn't in the game almost. Your thinking kind of goes out the window. So like a lot of the times people probably aren't using the common sense because they're so kind of caught up in that moment of, you know, everything that's going on and you're not thinking straight. But I think it's so amazing how that kind of technology and, you know, can be used in this way to profile people and to detect certain, you know, characteristics or things that we can't really pick up on.
Yeah, exactly. And the scary thing is we're training people how to do this automatically within their minds. They can literally look at things and take that information away. And I think one thing that's really important to us is that people aren't just searching for red flags, because when we search for red flags, we will see red flags no matter what, even if the person's completely honest and genuine. Because you know, it's like if you've been hurt in the past, you're going to be afraid to open up to someone again. Then you've got the other side. If you see the good in someone, you're going to make excuses for them all the time. You know, oh, they were just having a bad day. Oh, you know, it was just a one-off. We'll see how it goes. But one thing I really love about this information is that we're able to show people how to see the truth. And one thing I love about doing that is it gives people an informed decision and also gives people the choice. Because we don't choose to go into an abusive relationship or in a relationship with the wrong partner, or we don't choose that. And we want to be able to make an informed decision on who we're going to share the rest of our lives with. You don't want someone who's going to be wrong for you. You want to be able to be with someone and know it's going to be long lasting.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a really good point. I think like, you know, you want to be with someone who is, you know, on the same wavelength as you. You know, you're going to have those differences perhaps that's kind of like, you know, how relationships work, isn't it? But you want someone who's going to support you in what you're doing. And like you said, sometimes, you know, I know from my experience as well, like you said, you know, if you're an empathic or you're a certain kind of person, sometimes you attract certain kinds of people.
Mhm.
And like for me, I've kind of like probably wanted to coach or help certain, you know, people that I've had relationships with in the past, but it's not, you know, it's not your job to do that. But so I think some people can you know, take advantage of you as a person probably, and you can kind of lose yourself if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And I mean, every single relationship is going to be different for each person, but I mean, I think you kind of have to be quite mindful, don't you, and try and learn from past mistakes. Whereas some people kind of they'll go back to the same kind of person or the same relationship even, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's so true. And it's funny because the reason behind that is because we're just searching for what's familiar. You know, we always feel safe with what's familiar. And with a little bit of research I've done around narcissists, is people who tend to be quite attracted to narcissistic relationships, is that there's usually someone from their childhood who they've grown up with, whether it's a parent, whether it's a family friend, whoever it might be, they've grown up with someone who's also narcissistic. So when they see that growing up, or you know, when they start dating, that's instantly an attraction there because it feels familiar.
Mm,
So that's quite an interesting element there. But it's also allowing people to have that awareness of what's going on. Because I think
mm,
where people feel frustrated where it comes to dating is that there's either no awareness of what's going on, or there is awareness, but they don't know what to do about it. I tend to find that lots of people tend
mm.
to go, okay, I want to find the right one, but I haven't got a clue where to start or where to find them or how to attract them on Tinder, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's really interesting, isn't it? And I mean, I've used online dating and things like that, but part of me right now, I'm like, I find like some of the platforms applications they're not very good. Like
Mhm.
it's like I think if you because I was dating, I'm not going too much into it. I was dating somebody and we met a few times and they just completely disappeared,
Yeah,
completely just off the planet. And it's like I said nothing wrong, I'd done nothing wrong. A
yeah,
couple of months went by, and you can easily think, oh, it's me, and then
yeah,
you just start spiraling when you start believing that. But it's not the case half the time. It can be the other person for whatever reason.
yes.
Um, like, do you think you know what would you say like is the best way to deal with like online dating? Would you say you just be careful with it? Like trust your instinct, you know, like
There's definitely, I think instincts can help, but we always tend to listen to our instincts and tend to fall into those same patterns anyway. I mean, how many people have got into relationships and gone, oh, I did see that at the beginning, but I kind of just ignored it and went with it anyway. So, one thing I'd say that's really, really important is to actually know what you're looking for in the beginning.
mm,
Because I tend to find so many people tend to go into relationships or go into dating and just hope for the best rather than actually think about what they want. And I always almost call this the I compare this to like shopping. You know, if you're going to do your food shop for the week and you go in there with your list and you know exactly what you're going to buy, I can almost guarantee that you're going to get 97% of your shopping, okay? But if you go in there and you're absolutely bloody starving, you're going to go into that shop, you're going to have stuff in that trolley that, and it's not necessarily healthy for you, but it might just feel good at the time. And you're going to miss half of the ingredients that you're going to need to go and make your weekly meals. So, and I think dating's the same. If you go in there absolutely starving, desperate, wanting to find a relationship, you're not going to get something great out of it. You know, when we're starving, even a pot
mm,
noodle seems really good. You know?
mm. Yeah, I had a few of those a few days ago.
Did you?
Um, yeah, but then afterwards I was like, oh, why did I do that? I've got a stomachache now. Um, but
Great
no, it's
metaphor.
yeah, that's it exactly. Um, yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think if whatever you kind of seek, it's kind of seeking you, isn't it? Like if you're wanting like a quick fix, you're going to get that, and
Mhm.
it's not really going to serve you the same. And I think like what I think is that sometimes people find it easier to meet people to have a one night stand to just date casually because
Mhm.
like I think like relationships they take a lot of time and energy,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people, like I said, they haven't dealt with their past or whatever happened in the past, and they're going into relationships and being triggered because we've all got insecurities, haven't we?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
we can't bring that into the relationship because it just weighs you down, and I think that can happen, and sometimes people, you know, they just want something quick. Not This not all people. This is
No, I
what,
agree, yeah.
and
It's
it's a shame really that some people are stuck in that kind of
cycle.
loop almost like.
Yeah.
But would you say with the website and the platform that you've established and you're working on, is there been like good results from people using it?
Yeah, so when people have gone through like had training, it's been really interesting because, like you said, a lot of people who are almost afraid of dating, who are afraid of going into that relationship, it's easy to do the one night stands and all those different things. And it's partially because you tend to have this element where we need to heal to be able to form those really great connections. Where those
Mm,
connections that feel easy, where you can be vulnerable, where you can be open. And that's what relationships are really about. It's about being able to have this really deep connection where you can be open, where you can be open without judgment. I think that's the important bit because those insecurities are all about being afraid of being judged. And I
mm,
think when in relationships, it's almost being shown how to communicate, how to collaborate. So you're bringing that relationship together, how to have that consideration. So for each other and also the relationship. And that just makes a really strong basis of having that relationship. But it's also having that relationship with the right one. So the last element is compatibility. So the the way we take people through that is intelligent healing, so knowing how to heal, also how to profile someone. So if you can profile someone within 6 minutes, you kind of know whether you're talking to someone who's got potential to be a long lasting partner or someone who's not. So you're not wasting your time with the wrong one. Because let's face it, if you're dating, it usually takes a good 3 months to find out if it's going to be something that's not going to work or not. Okay. And
mm,
that's just, yeah, wasting a lot of time. And the other element is knowing how to connect deeply, to create that intimacy. So that's what
mm,
forms that long lasting relationship.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you, and I think they're really key kind of like components, aren't they, in a relationship? Like you said, like it's almost like I think of it like like how a watch works and all the cogs in between that kind of connect it and it goes together. It's a
Yeah.
bit like that, isn't it? And I think like if you haven't got that trust, if you haven't got that communication, um, I think communication is like probably a key part, isn't it? I mean, from
Yeah.
my experience, from relationships I've had, is that sometimes I've not been in the moment in the past, and I've said something 3 days later, and it's no good. It's no good 3 days later because because or if the other person brings something up 2 weeks ago, you're like, it was 2 weeks ago. Why didn't you tell me now?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and but that's by and by. Um, but communication is key, isn't it? And I think with social media, we've got all these devices to be able to communicate, but people don't seem to. Do you know what I mean? To sometimes communicate effectively.
Yeah, completely. I think it's quite so funny, like you were saying about like saying something to someone, 3 days or 2 weeks later. I think we've all been guilty with that, and it kind of creates
Yeah.
horrible background pissed offness, basically.
Yeah.
Builds up. But I think as well, social media. Yeah, social media, we kind of miss out on that proper key interaction. So I always find that, like, if you ever look in the NLP world, we always say that communication is 7% words, it's 38% tonality, so the way we speak, and then a 55% body language. So when we're getting a text message or seeing a social media post, we're missing this huge element of being able to actually see what's going on, seeing facial expressions, seeing language. Because even if you don't consciously know how to read body language, guess what? On a subconscious basis, you'll be picking up more than you realize, which is quite interesting. You can see if someone's listening, you can see if someone's focused, you can see if someone cares. But obviously we can, with the profiling aspect, we can see a lot more layers than people might realize.
Yeah.
For example, if someone turns around and goes, yes, I'm ready for a relationship, and they're saying all the right things, we can actually see if there's a mismatch with their body language and what they're actually saying as well, which is really important, which helps with the first stages of dating.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, I find it really fascinating and really interesting to talk about, because I think it's almost like an ongoing process, isn't it? Like a learning process for every single person. And we can all kind of relate to it in some way, because we're all kind of in a relation, people are in a relationship, or they're seeking a relationship, or they're not want, like there's all like a relatable, like a relativity to it. And I think, it's definitely, we're always learning things. I think, like, people I know who are, slightly older, still figuring out along the way. So I don't think there's like a set kind of goal, is when you figure it out, because it's kind of like an ongoing process. But I think, like you said, paying attention to how people communicate and what you're picking up on is massive, isn't it? Because I mean, sometimes I've been in relationships, and you kind of see things, you pick up on things, but you can kind of put it aside or kind of glaze it over and just see it. But you almost tell yourself it isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling yourself it's going to change one day or something like this.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's early warning. There's warning signs, and that communication is like key.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, you think about the information that's currently out there. It's very much like, if you want to try and improve your relationship, there's a lot of like manipulation techniques out there. So I know for the guys, there's like the pickup artist community, which is like, very interesting when you start looking at things like that. And then for women, it's very much like learning around scripts of these 10 things to make him fall in love with you. And we assume, like, number one, there's these horrible like manipulation side of things to get someone to feel something for you. There's also the other aspect of, because you're using those techniques, there's an element of you that doesn't feel enough in that relationship. Like, you almost need to do something to make someone you rather than just be you. And I think that's something that's quite scary in the relationship and dating world, where we want to make genuine connections, like honest and genuine connections, through being someone that we're not. So you almost got these two little puppets, if you like, the women, or two actors trying to play out a genuine relationship, and it doesn't work like that. So I think there's like all these different elements to it as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's like, I think, like you said, you have to be yourself, don't you, in a relationship? And if you're not being yourself, that takes a lot of energy to try and be something that you're not, doesn't it? And I think
Yeah.
that's why I think sometimes people see the cracks, probably because they're actually seeing the person for who they are. If they're playing a front.
Yeah.
Like, would you? Trying to think, would you say that, because like people always try and, I think parents sometimes tell people what they need to do, or how relationship should be. Do you think people, like with relationships, people need to just find out on their own path, if that makes sense?
Yeah,
Is kind of
completely. It's actually like, it's a really great point, because it's actually a point where in my course where I actually get people to say, right, okay, what was, think about your first relationship that you've ever seen quite intimately is your parents, okay? When you're growing up, your childhood. So even if your parents are split up, you've seen that interaction, how that works. So we almost have this set way unconsciously of how a relationship is and how a relationship works. But it's when we actually step back and say, right, okay, what is it that I want? What is it that I want that's different? What is it that I want's the same? What's the whole relationship that I do want? And what are my beliefs? Because I don't know if you've learned about a lot around beliefs, but beliefs are created between the ages of 0 and 7 years old. And what they tend to do is they hang around in the background in our subconscious, and it really influences our actions and our behaviors in relationships. So like we were saying about those insecurities, or for example, your beliefs might be something on the lines of gender roles in relationships. So men are the providers, this, that, and the other, and women stay at home and look after the children. If you've got these kind of beliefs going on in the background of how you believe a relationship should be, then that's going to influence the way that you see relationships and the way you interact and your behavior in relationships as well. So it's almost like taking it back and looking at the layers that you currently believe, and actually taking a moment to think, okay, is that what you really, really want? Or is it something different? If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, of course. It's definitely true, isn't it? And I think, like you said, the subconscious mind's programmed with, like, is it the first, like I said, the first 7 years of your life. So, whatever's kind of you're like a sponge almost, aren't you, in those first years where you're picking up on probably how your parents are being, and all of that. And I think that's pretty frightening when you think about it, because it's like you can't control what's unfolding at those years in your life, and you're just kind of soaking that up. So when you go out into the world, you're like, oh, okay, well, this is however you're behaving. And I think it's a very like mindful kind of place you have to go to, isn't it? I think if you're wanting to be in the right relationship, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
As well.
If you think even down to the levels of things like social conformity, of the social dynamics of what we believe a relationship should look like as well, that has a huge influence on the way that we believe that things should be. So even like pressure, you're almost like have you ever been in a situation where you've had a huge argument with your partner, and then all of a sudden you've gone into a social situation 2 minutes later and act like everything's fine? Right? Because there's this social pressure of like, showing that everything's great, and we've got a great relationship and things like that. So I think that's got a huge part to play as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think, like, especially with social media, and like, you can put up photos, and like I remember, one relationship I had, people are, oh, everything's okay on Facebook, you look so happy, and I'm like, yeah, but that's just like a picture. I mean, it's but I got nothing against people putting photos on Facebook. It's just kind of how it is. But I think when you go into the social situations, there is that kind of mask of, if you want to appear to be okay, even though things might not be. In like arguments, it's crazy when you think about it, when you break it down. But you said, you have to peel back those kind of layers of the onion, so to speak, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is the thing. I think people think that relationships are straightforward. They are if you're with the right one. But we're left thinking, if you're the wrong type of person who's not compatible, you're kind of left thinking like, oh, well, it must be me. Or there must be something going wrong. And it's I think being able to provide this sort of program, this kind of insight at this quite deep level, we're able to show people the way to have clarity, to actually find the right one and
Mm,
find the issues. You know, for example, like if you look at your past relationships, you know, we're able to give people the clarity to let them know why their past relationship didn't work and why
mm.
it failed. And I think that's a real healing process for a lot of people as well.
Yeah. No, no, exactly. And I think like as well, you know, if you've got family members and things like that, it's a funny place for them because they can't really tell it's you're an adult and they might drop hints or say things sometimes and you're like, okay. And it's almost like sometimes the whole kind of world can see it as an observer sometimes, but you kind of can't see it when you're in it. And it's it's interesting. It's interesting how our minds work and how we can kind of don't see things. But I agree with you as well. And like with what you're doing, I see that you've got a lot of kind of like traction. You've been in like articles and in the media as well, like magazines and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did you expect that to happen? Like I see you've been in some quite big.
Yeah, no, definitely not in the beginning. I mean, we've been in a lot of press and national press. Business partner Chase Hughes, he's actually been on the Dr. Phil show over in America quite recently.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really do believe that this is going to be like the revolution of dating and relationships. Another thing that we're bringing forward that we're starting to take applicants for is matchmaking with intelligence. So we actually profile people who genuinely want to be in long-lasting relationships, and we're able to have a look at profile them, profile a potential partner, and take them through an awesome 6-month process to end up in a long-lasting, loving relationship. And I am so excited about this because I was chatting to someone
Wow.
today, and they were saying that they were getting so frustrated with dating, you know, so frustrated with things like Tinder and things like that. And I think, you know, when you have a look at the stats of like 51% of people on online dating already in relationships, when you have a look at like, I think it's like 10% of sex offenders go and have a look for their victims online and things like that, it's terrifying. So
Yeah.
by bringing this process in, we're able to take a lot of the pain and take a lot of the
Mm.
uncertainty out of dating for people. So
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think it's great, what you're doing and that, you love what you do and you're wanting to help other people, to find their, ideal partner. And I think that's kind of what it's all about. And I think there is a lot of kind of stigma with certain dating apps. Um, not all experience that I've had with through online dating have been bad, like a lot of them, being pretty, met some quite okay people. And like some of the apps you have to pay for, and you're like, it's not really even worth paying for because it's just crap. And I was talking to a girl. I won't get too much into it. I was talking to a girl for a while, and literally asked for a number, and she reported me on Tinder when I was using Tinder at the time. And
No.
I got blocked. I can't use it anymore. But I've kind of taken it as a sign. I was like, okay, well, it's just not meant to be. And part of me feels better that I'm not using it anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was just like, you're talking to someone for a while, for like a couple of weeks or a month, and you just ask for the number. It's like it makes you no, well, you kind of doubt yourself to begin with, but then you're kind of like, well, what is the right way to kind of talk to somebody or get to know someone? When is the right time to ask for a number? Do you think there's a certain kind of way of structuring a dating profile? Should people put lots of information, the kind of picture?
Yeah,
Do
I'd
you,
say, yeah, I'd say it's always thinking about like how do you want people to see you and understand you? So if you
mm,
think about the elements of your life that's really important to you, so it might be, I don't know, it might be, for example, traveling,
mm,
friends, going out. Well, make sure your pictures reflect that. Make sure that your interests are listed because that can make such a great talking point for people.
yeah,
And I'd say, if you're going to go ahead and talk to people, skip the, hey, how you doing? Having a good weekend. Go into something a bit witty, or ask something about their profile or something like that, which actually shows that you've taken interest, that you've taken the time to really understand this person before writing that message. So I
Yeah.
think there are elements that can really, really help. But
Oh,
that's
that's really,
unfortunate though, like the number thing getting blocked.
yeah.
Mental.
I was just like, I've been talking 4 weeks. I just, asked for the number now,
Talking
and then
4 weeks.
like 4 weeks, yeah, and it was just like,
True.
yeah, but I
Awful.
know, but yeah, it's crazy world sometimes. But I kind of learned that I had my kind of life coach title in the profession, and
Mhm.
I'd have people sometimes saying, "Oh, I need a life coach," and and I was like, I'm here to date. I'm not here to find clients.
Yes.
And then I was like, I'm not going to put that on my profile anymore, because you, it's all a learning curve, isn't it? It's all a process. But I think through what you're doing, it seems like the right way to go. That's kind of how it seems a lot better than a lot of the other platforms that are out there.
It saves it, like I said, it saves all the awkward messages and the wrong
Mm,
dates. And I think, when we go into things like online dating, how much time and emotional energy do we
mm,
put into it, trying to find the right one? And you think
mm,
about it in terms of, like, even if you were going to do like a financial investment, for example, it's like that investment versus the what you're going to get back, that return
mm,
investment. When you're going on those online dating sites and you're putting all that energy in, or you might be paying for the app or whatever, and then suddenly getting shot down and not getting anywhere, that's pretty tough.
yeah,
We
yeah,
just want to make sure it's like really easy for people. We want to bring that joy back into dating again, and making it
mm,
fun, making it interesting, making those deep connections rather than the superficial rubbish that's
mm,
superficial
yeah,
relationships.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's another element is, how many people or how many couples do you know that you feel that they have the best relationship, the type of relationship that you would want for yourself? How many people do you know? And it's probably
mm,
not that many.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, I've seen some people have these relationships where they'll be arguing and they'll be kicking off, and
mm.
then the next morning it's like that never happened. And sometimes that can happen. That can happen, in relationships. But I think like it's good that you can bounce back. But I think you have to probably communicate and address things, don't you,
Yeah.
about things that kind of are working and aren't. Do you have any like books you recommend that you'd like
So
to read at all?
yeah. So for the behavioral profiling, I definitely recommend the Ellipsis Manual by Chase Hughes. It's absolutely fascinating. You'll get a lot from that book. What's another good one that I really like? What have I got?
I can't read them from here, but I can see there's books on
I
there.
actually love as well Brené Brown. Any Brené Brown book I love, because it really helps you understand like the vulnerability, the empathy side, which is really important to a relationship.
Mm,
Um, I've read so many relationship books out there, but I would really struggle to recommend one, which is
yeah,
awful.
yeah,
But I'd say definitely the Ellipsis Manual, and definitely anything by Brené Brown, where you can actually have a look at sort of the emotional side, so you can actually
yeah.
have deeper connections with people.
No, that's awesome. Like as well, did you, if you ever read that classic one, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus? Is that
No, no.
John Gray? Oh, well, one of my ex girlfriends told me to read. She's like, you need to read this, and I was like, okay, cool. So I read like a third of the book, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll put that on the shelf now. But it's but it was a very deep book. I think I'll probably need to read it again. Like some of these books are very deep. You go to kind of the psychological side of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think, like you said, those books sound great, and I think it's important to kind of read those kind of books, isn't it? So you can
Yeah.
probably apply it to your life and your relationship.
Yeah, I'm actually writing a book as we speak as well. So hopefully
Awesome.
publishing it by the end of the year. But it actually takes people step by step through the processes that I take my clients through to be able to find that perfect relationship for you as well. So
Yeah.
that'll be being released soon.
No, great. That's awesome, and I'll definitely promote it and
Thank you.
share it. And if you want to come on again, we could talk about your book
Yeah,
when you release it as well.
thank you. No, this has been so much fun. So thank you for having me on.
No, no, you're very welcome. Like, where can people find you on social media and your
Yeah.
website, that kind of thing?
So we've got a website which is lovewithintelligence.com. We've got some really
Mm.
cool resources on there at the moment. So we've got a free PDF guide on how to find the right one. We've also got a really cool webinar as well, which helps people to find the right one in 6 months or less. We're also on Facebook and we're also on Instagram and LinkedIn as well.
Oh, awesome. That sounds great. But no, I'll definitely share all your details and I'll put it in the description for you as well. But I wish you all the best and your book and all that you're doing. I think you're doing great work, and I hope people take a lot from this and check it out because I think it's definitely important.
Lovely. Oh, well, thank you so much. Really, really
No,
appreciate
no,
it.
no, you're welcome, Louis. You're welcome. But have a lovely evening.
Thank you. You too.
Welcome.